Wow, this is where shit starts to get kinda weird, guys. Friday the 13th Part 3D was released in 1982, again being produced after only a single year. Directing duties were handled again by Steve Miner. This was also the first Friday film where Sean Cunningham did not work on the film at all. The film was shot in 3D, capitalizing on the Hollywood gimmick that always seems to come back every few decades. Soon, even Jaws would get a 3D picture with a very creative Jaws 3D name. It was a gimmick that for some reason draws in viewers, and when you add in the fact that you can make a pun with the title, it is too enticing for Hollywood execs to resist. But I digress. This film was shot on a budget of $2.3 million, which again is a pretty significant rise over the previous film's $1.25 million, and the first film's $550,000. This film follows Chris Higgins and her group of friends as they head to Crystal Lake once again, except this time they're just visiting the Higgins Lake House. Chris is basically just a clone of Alice from the first film. Other characters include Ricky, Chris's 75-year-old boyfriend, who's a country boy who works on Chris's lake house like a slave. Debbie, Andy, and Vera, who are just the standard cannon fodder that have become a staple of this franchise. Shelly, who is the prankster but with a twist. This time he's also a fat virgin that everyone calls a loser and clearly has low self-esteem and hates himself almost as much as everyone else hates him. Chuck and his fiancée Chili, the stoners who act like Cheech and Chong and love the ganja as much as they love their shag carpet van they smoke it in. This film also features Allie, Fox, and Loco, a group of bikers who are trying to sabotage the group after Shelly runs their bikes over. Anyhow, as you'd expect, Jason comes and kills the bikers, then goes on to killing all of Chris's friends one by one. Eventually, once everyone is dead, Jason goes after his main prey, Chris, who has to face her fear of Jason, who as a child apparently saw him and his horribly disformed face. Then he tried to murder her, although his reasons are pretty well unknown, and she has been scarred for life from the incident. Anyway, this all leads to a dramatic, drawn-out fight where Jason looks like a dumbass trying to chase down this girl unsuccessfully after failing to kill her in the house and after failing to kill her when she was trapped in a van. He chases her to a barn, although Jason can't find her, so he ransacks the barn until eventually Chris hops on him and he falls down. Despite him being able to take a blow from a machete in the previous film, he cannot take the force of an 120-pound girl falling on him from 4 feet above his head. Regardless, this leads to a further chase where Jason gets hit in the head with a shovel and pushed out of a window only to be lynched. Thinking this is the end, Chris tries to go outside, but nope, Jason survives the encounter and is finally able to go in for the kill when all of a sudden Ollie, who has been hiding in the closet apparently for like 16 hours, jumps out and attacks him. Unfortunately for Ollie, he is slaughtered in seconds, but this allows Chris to get the jump on Jason, putting an axe into his head, seemingly kill him. Relieved, she does what any survivor of an attack from a Voorhees family member would do: hop on a canoe and row out to an approximate 4-foot depth. However, her relief was short-lived as she saw Jason running towards her. Before Jason can even reach her, she's jumped by a zombie, but this time it was of Pamela and not of a kid Jason. I guess Steve Miner wanted to mirror the first movie.
Lots. Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
He must have heard of the ring theory. Anyhow, she falls into the water and is fished out by the police, who mention how fucking delusional she is and that they had to fish her out of the water. The film ends with the police leaving the crime scene unguarded with no police tape, no crime scene photos taken, and no ambulance to clean up all the human remains. They even left the body of the most prolific and evasive serial killer in all of Crystal Lake and probably the world's corpse just laying there to rot. And our story ends. This movie had its improvements over the previous two, but for the most part was far worse. First off, this movie posed even more questions than answers in regards to the first and second films. A. Why is it that after surviving a Voorhees attack, do people feel the need to hop in a canoe and row to the middle of the lake, only to have a strange nightmare about being dragged under the water? Is this an inherited trait that the Voorhees have, where when they are killed or presumably killed, they transfer a nightmare into their killer's mind, where they are dragged under the water by a real Voorhees that said person would have no knowledge of? B. Why does Jason look like a cheap version of Sloth from the Goonies and not some ugly hairy guy? I mean, with Chris's memory, we also learned that he looked like Sloth before, so what, did he get plastic surgery to look like a weird hairy man and then get plastic surgery again to go back to looking like Sloth from the Goonies? C. Why is Jason killing these people? His motives in the second movie made sense sort of, because he was killing these camp counselors he may have thought were his mom's killers, but according to this movie, he was alive the whole time, so why was he even seeking out revenge, as he seemingly thought his mom hated him? At least that is the only way I could fathom that he would just start living in the woods like a murderous Bigfoot. So why did he want revenge? And why does he even want to kill these guys? They're not camp counselors. They don't even look like the people who killed his mom. D. Why was he not killing camp counselors and teens earlier than part 2 if he really just likes killing random people for no reason? It's really confusing. I also really don't understand what this film's obsession is with copy-pasting scenes from the first movie into it. Like, I guess at the speed they made it, they knew it was a quick way to get some shit out. They also weren't afraid of stock footage. In the second movie it made sense, as it explained why Jason does what he does in the second movie. But in this movie it felt like they just wanted to cheap out and cover 5 minutes of runtime with stock footage that had no relevance. Anyhow, I guess I can no longer put off talking about the worst part of this film by far, the 3D. The only film I can think of that may have raped the 3D effect even more was maybe Spy Kids 3D, and this is a debate me and Aiden had, but I think this movie had Spy Kids beat. The big problem watching this in non-3D is it's really annoying that everything is not only 3D, but overly 3D. 3D popcorn popping, 3D joint pass, 3D joint coming out of a human asshole. Honestly, the only thing that should have been 3D were the kills, which admittedly would have been kinda cool, but how the kills were shot, you really need those glasses or they look kinda shitty. Also, if you're to buy the 4-pack DVD like I did with 1 through 4, or I assume if you buy the 8-pack with 1 through 8, you don't get glasses. So you're watching it in 2D, which makes the effects look like shit. This film also gives Jason his trademark hockey mask, but it just felt like a cheap way to not have to apply the Sloth from the Goonies makeup in every scene, and in this movie the hockey mask honestly isn't scary, especially on a strange, stumbly, and seemingly incompetent Jason. The mask also looks like it was bought from a garage sale for 50 cents. That said, let's talk about what the film did improve on. The kills. Yes, the kills are actually kind of badass. Yes, they rely heavily on the gimmick, which make them kind of annoying to watch, but they're still cool. I mean, we got the eyeball kill, the arrow kill, and the upside down through the nads kill, which is the most painful kill to watch and to write about in this entire franchise. Other than that, this movie pretty much sucked in comparison to the first movie and even the second movie. And honestly, it's hard to suggest because it felt boring, felt uninspired, and just copied the first one in the few good moments it had. Just look up the kills on YouTube. I'm sure someone tossed them all into some video that will save you a good hour and 25 minutes compared to watching the whole thing. Anyway, we're done with the first 3, and that means we're going to go on to the classic Tommy Jarvis trilogy, starting with Friday the 13th, the final chapter. So stay tuned for that.